don't know, something about seeing it in print is still special. There's always a route in. You just have to, you know, do the work in terms of, you say, building a personal brand. You know, you're managing projects, you're managing people, you're managing, you know, website and contributors who are coming in day to day. So it was a big learning curve.
Welcome to the How to Be a Journalist podcast. Today's guest is the athletic staff editor, Richard Amofa. He was named the Football Blacklist Ones to Watch back in 2021, has played with Raheem Sterling at QPR, and contributed to the release of The Lion Who Never Roared, covering the career of Jack Leslie. He was even named NCTJ Student Sports Journalist of the Year, which, I have to say, fair play. But at the end of the day, I can talk about Richard's accomplishments for on and on and on. But today, I'm hoping to get a better understanding behind the man behind the byline. So here he is today, Richard Amofa. How are you doing today?
Hey, yeah, really good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely no problem at all. So what did your day entail before you got to this point and came into the office?
As I say, I live in Devon, so I got the early train up this morning.
Yeah.
As usual, the trains were delayed, so I missed a connection from Reading to Twickenham, so I had to get the next one.
Yeah.
But I got here, you know, safe and sound and on time, which I was happy about because you know, I hate being late. So I got here on time, I was happy with that. And just did a really good talk with the students just now. They asked some really, really good questions about, you know, the industry, myself, etc. And it's inspiring to see, you know, from where I was in that position, you know, 8 years ago now.
Yeah.
And I think now is, you know, just trying to give back as much as like knowledge I've picked up along the way, and just try and help as many people as possible, really, because, you know, as you know, it's a real tough industry to get into. I feel very privileged to do what I do, and of course it's about kind of building the next generation. So any help or value that I can provide to others, I'm always on hand to do that. So yeah, I'm really passionate about that.
Yeah. Is it a little bit surreal coming back to the place that you trained as a journalist and given a talk to the sports journalism trainees, like as you did earlier today?
Yeah, it is a bit, because I mean, where I studied was in Wimbledon.
Yeah.
So I was in the previous office. So even see where you know News Associates is now. You know, bigger office, the facilities are great as well. It just shows the growth of what they do, because, you know, I mean, that is like probably, like I say, the preeminent course to get into the industry. So many places now, you know, they look and say, oh, you went News Associates? Oh, no, wait. So you either get, so did I, or, oh, okay, I know they're good. Yeah. And so, you know, if they're good and you're here, you're going to be good because you've got all the skills and they've equipped you with the skills needed to kind of work on a day to day. So yeah, it's great to like be here. And as I say, when I was in their shoes and I was listening to, you know, guest speakers coming in and I'm thinking, I want to be in your position. So it's great that there's that conveyor belt of, you know, people coming through the door.
Yeah. Well, that is a fantastic way to start, because glowing reviews about our presenters, News Associates, always will do me very, very well. And I know my boss will be listening right now, so that's going to do me a lot of good.
Perfect.
Okay, so we're going to get into before you started your journalism career. So could you say that your time working as a club promoter and it funded your early sort of journalism career? So when you were studying that history BA, did you have an interest in journalism itself then? Oh,
definitely. So my journalism kind of journey really started when I left QPR, essentially, because again I was still in school, went to sixth form, and I was writing when I was injured. I wasn't obviously playing for the school football team or anything, but I'd write the match reports for the school football team, and I'd put them, I'd either like print them out so that it's ready for the next day. So when everyone came in, I'd have the match report ready, and I'd pass it around at the common room and to like all the teachers and stuff. So like, you know, just like a normal newspaper, essentially. And then you just kind of grow from there, really. And I think I did it once or twice and didn't get that much traction. But then when the team started doing quite well, it's, you know, everyone wanted to kind of know what their assessment would be like, because everyone wants to know what people think of them naturally. And that's kind of how it grew from there, really. So then, you know, just doing more writing, more kind of exposure to it. And yeah, it started to be received really, really well. And I did a similar thing at uni. So I don't know if you know a thing called Varsity. I think you guys must do it as well, would have done it. So ours was with Portsmouth and the South Coast. So basically at the time, I set up a blog. It's called Off the Post News. So I was doing that as well. I was quite busy at uni. So basically,
Club promoter, off the
yeah,
post,
yeah, exactly.
it was all going on.
No, because with history, basically, you don't have many contact hours, so I had a lot of spare time. So I had to try and be productive. So Off the Post News essentially focused on academy players coming through the system.
Yeah.
And at that time, there's a really big debate about players coming through and making it through the system. So I wanted to kind of highlight the talent that was in the systems, essentially, and try and provide that platform. Almost like what you see now with like players like Rising Ballers, for example. Like, that's what they do amazingly. But we did that within a uni space, so had loads of like people writing for the blog from uni and other unis as well. We had almost like 100 across the country doing different bits and bobs. So managing that kind of network was really like good fun. And then again, so I did that uni. Then for varsity on a smaller scale, anyway, we had set up this whole production things. We worked with the student union, and they had all their cameras, and did lots of like pitch side interviews and filmed a lot of the games. We did all the like post match interviews and previews and stuff like that. And made it in terms of like a big project of varsity, but through like my website, if that makes sense. So luckily I had the support of the uni, but that was just like kind of gave me that kind of thing of like mentality of, okay, if I can make this work, then I can at least showcase what I've done. So when I finish uni, I can show like employers and stuff, okay, I've done this off my own back. Give me a chance, basically.
Cool.
So that's kind of the kind of origins of it, I'd say.
Yeah, and I read that you, like with Off the Post News, your like readership and your viewership of your website reached a really like impressive number. Do you want to say that number that you got to?
I can't remember. It should be on my CV
Yeah.
somewhere. But no, it got to a few million, I would say.
Yeah. I read them 5 million.
Yeah. So there we go. But I think one, we had a good network. We were doing lots of interviews with young players and news and stuff like that as well. And because I think that was topical, especially whenever England got knocked out for a competition, There was always, we producing enough players. I knew we were because I've seen it with my own eyes throughout the system. But that wasn't kind of amplified in the mainstream media. So that was like our little angle, really. And I just think it just hit a tone with people for over time. And even from there, we started getting access to like England games and Wembley and under-21 games across the country, and just managing that and working at, academy games across the country. So where, if I couldn't go to it, there'll be someone up north who could go to, like, say, Barnsley or something, or where England under-21s were, played a couple of games, or Manchester, or whatever, and just trying to build that network of run reporters, but also just trying to get as much news and information out there, really. So it was really good fun, obviously, of its time, and it did quite well. Yeah.
And how did you go about like finding writers for the website that could go to all of these places across the UK?
I think a lot of people are interested in journalism, are interested in writing, and we were able to offer like exposure to certain things, like games and press conferences and stuff. So when people were like practicing or wanted to get into the industry, we said, well, this is a good gateway into it because you're actually able to go to games and have accreditation and kind of get your way in there. So obviously when you're at uni, you could put stuff on like job sites and job boards and stuff like that, and that's just kind of how it grew from there.
Yeah, and I seen that Ivan Toney, like you sussed him out when he was at Newcastle. Were there any other players that you reported on through Off the Post that have had amazing careers since that point onwards?
I'll be honest, like majority of the players who we see now, like we would have seen back then, let's just say like 10 years ago, most of the guys who are at their peak were playing in the Premier League. You'd say, we would have covered them at some point, or we interviewed like Ole Einar, for example, who Nigeria international playing in the Premier League week in, week out, as an example. Dom Solanke, players of that ilk, really. Yeah. And obviously not everyone reaches the top, but a lot of players have made really good careers in the game, in the EFL and the lower leagues. And as I say, to become a professional from an academy is still, the chances are still very thin. So it's really nice to see that growth of certain players and be like, oh yeah, we interviewed you like X years ago, look what they're doing now, or we showcase so-and-so. Or there'll just be players who you might see you scoring every week who are like, oh yeah, I remember, he used to score bags of goals and now he's doing the same now. conversely, not everybody makes it. So you might see someone who was doing amazingly who may have dropped in the lower leagues or non-league as well. And it's just, no journey is linear, but it's just really interesting to see how their journeys pan out.
Yeah. And so, like, with running, like, a site as such, that obviously takes a lot of work, and then working as a promoter at the same time as well. Like, how did you, like, do all of that and balance all of that? Like, and, well, effectively, and stay consistent with everything?
That's a good question. I just enjoyed it, so I didn't see it as work.
Yeah.
You know, if it was something more mundane, I wanted to obviously make money at uni, but I didn't really want to have a bar job because that would take up a lot of like actual physical time. Whereas like with the promotional stuff, a lot of it is done on social media, so it wasn't actually taking up that much of my time really. Post a few things on Facebook or BBM back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
It just all kind of comes in. So you're kind of just doing that as when you're studying really. And then the website stuff was just in my spare time. But as I said, I had so much spare time. Once I finished my assignments and stuff, then I was able to do it. So it didn't really feel like work because I always knew there was an end goal that I wanted to get to. So that was it really.
And was there anything about like the other jobs that you did whilst at uni that surprisingly like helped you in your journalism career?
Yeah, I mean, the promotional stuff, for example, you have to do a lot of networking, obviously, or it just comes naturally because you're always out and about, and obviously you want to build your kind of client base, say in the verticals, because they're just students going to whatever. But because there were quite a few promoters, you want everyone to come through you. So that's when you start kind of meeting people, and obviously then people start trusting you because they might ask for, I don't know, let's say they want like a VIP thing or whatever, and you sort it out for them. So, you can trust him, he's going to sort you out, or if it's someone's birthday. So it just kind of grows from there. And you think about now and the kind of day to day, you're always building or trying to build your network anyway, networking and contacting people, being on the phone, and just being personable with people and building those relationships, even from back then, something that, it's really, really important, and it is a skill, getting to know people and building relationships, and we can always improve on that. I mean, I'm not the best at it. I can always be better, but just like with anything, you can be better at anything that you do. So, that kind of aspect, and just like you say, managing your time, work rate, as you say, just getting your head down and just getting stuff done, managing multiple projects, because as a journalist, there are multiple stories or things which you'll be working on. You've got to be able to manage your time accordingly. So all those skills, now come to think of it, plays a really big role in what I do now.
Yeah. Okay, so now we've spoken a little bit about how you got your start. What was the first story that you wrote that you were like, I'm actually a really skilled writer and I could actually make a living out of this? Like, it could be a combination of a lot of things, but what's the first thing that comes to mind?
That's a good question. I think it's maybe when I got my first back page.
Yeah.
So I was doing just work experience for a local newspaper in West London, and just a back page of a player. He played for Hayes and Yedding, who at the time were in the Conference or Conference South. Just seeing your name. There were two, so I'll come on to that in a minute, the second one. But just seeing, you always want the back page because that's where the main story is, the sports story, the splash. So if you can get the back page, it means you've got the best story of that day or that week or whenever that publication comes out. And, well done to you, basically. So when I got my first back page, I was like, okay, wow, this is, seeing your name in print, your byline, obviously for the first time on the back page is great. And it just gives you the hunger to want to do more, want to get more. I remember the first time I had a byline in the Daily Mail, also work experience there, and there was just like a little side feature. It's about a couple hundred words kind of thing, but just seeing your name there, it's like, wow, Daily Mail, like millions of people read it every day. The website, but also just in print. I mean, obviously things are moving online now, even back then, but I don't know, something about seeing it in print is still special. So that was a great moment for me, and that kind of just, it was a springboard really that, okay, I can do this, and they trust me to do this, so if I can do it once, why not do it twice, why not do it 3 times? So that was like a springboard, I would say. Yeah.
And would you say that when you first got the splash, and do you think that it's important to work at those regional publications as such?
Definitely.
Yeah.
You know why? Because it throws you in the deep end. Like, you just have to just at the end of the day, like, the paper's got to be published. But however, whether it's weekly, daily, bi-weekly, whatever. So you've got to find the stories to fill that paper.
Yeah.
So it means you have to throw yourself in the deep end to get those stories to fill the paper.
Yeah.
So you have to do that work, and I feel like working at local papers, even when I did, later on in the career, like, it gives you that grounding, like the core journalistic principles of, getting a story, formulating it, meeting deadlines, formulating a story is so important, and that's never going to go away. As much as people are writing features or, other bits of content, we're doing podcasts or etc. Stories are always going to be the thing that gets people off their seat.
Yeah.
And those core skills you can really get at a local level because you're building your contacts within the area. So whether people get in touch with you, get in touch with people. For example, I did a lot of news, but for example, if you're like a crime reporter, people build relationships with, like, from the police to criminals, and having those aspects of that in your local community. So again, sports, you're building relationships with, like, the clubs in your area, players, agents, etc., etc. So those kind of core skills, you have to showcase them day to day, even at local level, national level, because that's the core fundamentals of journalism.
Yeah.
And as I say, that will never go away.
And in those, like, local papers, obviously for the most part they operate still in print.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think about the people that go to the roof shouting, "Print is dead, print is dead, print is dead"? Like, what do you think about that?
Because I think it's been a debate ever since I've started in the industry.
Yeah.
And I think the figures do indicate there is a decline in that aspect, but there's opportunities for growth for online. So it's how are we able to tell these kind of stories to meet the audience that we need? So if print is declining, online's going this way, then you've got to think, okay, how are we going to amplify the online section? I think it's always going to be a challenge. The industry's changing all the time, so it's how you navigate that all the time and just trying to be on top of different trends, different aspects of it. Because a printer is going to, you'd hope it's always going to be there. Where I work now, we're more of an online publication, but it would be a shame if print was to decline to the point where it wasn't there anymore. So I think it's still something special about picking up a newspaper and reading it. But to say you have to go where the market's going, and if it's easier for people to look at stuff on their phone and different things, then you have to work towards it.
Yeah. And another thing, we're going to segue into another section. Obviously, when we were speaking in the panel with the sports journalism course earlier on today, you spoke about a little period of time that you spent outside of journalism. So you left it for a little bit of time and worked for the Devon Council. So tell me about that foray out of journalism, and what were the lessons that you learned?
Yeah, good question. It was just a time, I was getting married and I was just at a different stage of my life. So I just felt like I wanted to do something different. And yeah, as I say, I moved into kind of communications. It was a kind of an all-encompassing role, really. So I was doing comms, but I was also doing project management. I was also, I was managing the website and stuff like that. So the kind of skills that I got online, so like, for example, SEO, that was really key in helping build up the particular website that I was working on. And as I say, project management as well, and being able to, I'd not managed before up until that point. So, you're managing projects, you're managing people, you're managing, website and contributors who are coming in day to day. So it was a big learning curve, definitely, and it was very different to, what I was doing before. But, even the skills that I learned from then has definitely helped me now, just in terms of, you're dealing with different people, people in the community, counsellors, colleagues, whatever. Because obviously it's a different kind of colleague because it's a different, there's different sections of it. Obviously you've got finance, you've got, HR, you've got all this kind of stuff, where in journalism you just kind of meet other journalists, don't you? So, it was just navigating that really was really, really interesting. But I think doing that just helps broaden my horizon to different things. And sometimes you can be so kind of hemmed in on one thing and focused, and I wouldn't tell anyone to go against that focus. But kind of stepping back and kind of broadening those horizons are really important as well. Just gives you a different perspective.
Yeah. Congratulations on being married as well.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
no
you.
problem at all. And obviously you work for the Devon Council, and having grown up in Ealing, like, why did you make that journey to Devon? Because people usually say that if you want to work in journalism or in media or anything creative, that London, or maybe let's say, let's give second place to Manchester.
Yeah, good.
Like, those are the places that you want to be. So what took you from London to Devon, and how have you found like getting roles from that point on?
Yeah, I think to be honest, what you said is still very much the case.
Yeah.
Still very like London centric. Obviously Manchester's growing. You've got Birmingham too, and of course you have the big cities. But you know, London is the capital city. Is where it's at, isn't it? You can't no denying that. Just at the time where I was, so I'd finished at the Telegraph and I was just freelancing, and I was at a time where I needed something permanent as well, because when you're working full time, then you're not. Again, that's freelancing, and jobs were there, but I wanted to make sure I stayed in journalism as well. And I'll be honest, like my now wife, she was from there.
Yeah.
So we met at university, did the whole long distance thing, and it just kind of worked out that something came up down there at that particular time. And I just went for it really. And luckily I got it, and obviously the rest is history, as they say. But that was kind of the reason behind the move, really. So my missus was from the area, so it just made sense to just move down there because we did the whole long distance thing for so long, and it's only so long you can do that for, right? So I think that's the main reason, really. But I mean, don't get me wrong. I think lockdown changed a lot in terms of like working from home in that aspect as well. Like, would the opportunities in London or elsewhere have come about for me if there was no lockdown? Maybe not, because just the way it is, like especially just work from home wasn't really too much of a thing.
Yeah.
Pre-lockdown. So I think it's just all about timing, being in the right place at the right time, and say luckily, I was able to get back in.
Yeah. Okay. So, like, would you say that, because now you obviously work for The Athletic, and you're still based in Devon, so am I wrong by saying that you still can work at a big publication or a notable publication while not living in London? And how does that work with you? How do you have this role as staff editor of The Athletic and live in Devon? Yes.
No, listen, I think, let's say things kind of open up now. A lot of people try and move out of London anyway, just because of like cost of living and stuff, and maybe commuting. I think now things have opened up again. Obviously, you do want to be in the office, just in terms of like bouncing ideas of each other and kind of speaking to your colleagues and stuff like that. When stories are going on, it's obviously more efficient to be next to someone and have a chat. But obviously, it does work well remotely. Like there's people who live in Manchester, there's people who live in Leeds, South Coast. So we've got people everywhere, and some people live in Newcastle, for example. So you just find a way to make it work. And I think with the kind of being able to adapt to remote working, it just gives you that flexibility as well. And it opens up doors for people. As you say, if people live in Newcastle or Manchester or whatever, would they, I mean, similar to me, would they have got the opportunity, if they weren't, if it wasn't for the kind of flexible working environment that we have now?
Yeah.
I think it's adapting to ways to make that work. So, what's the word I'm looking for? So, like, productivity isn't hampered. And I think, as you say, you've got like Zoom and you've got like Slack, for example, Slack, which is like instant communication tool, and that's super helpful because everything's just like written down and you can stay on top of everything. Obviously, your virtual meetings and stuff. So there's a way, and obviously it has worked. It works well for us. I mean, we've got reporters based all over the country as well, not just in London, obviously. So they're out and about doing their stuff. So it actually provides a real dynamic and flexible environment where. So sometimes if you're in London, you can just be London-centric and tell London stories. Yeah. But actually having people all around the country, or as you know, for us, we've got people all around Europe, you can hone in on stories based on the patches that they're in and areas that they're in. And you can tell stories from across the country or, as I say, across Europe.
Yeah. And what type of stories do you like specialize in while at the Athletic?
Well, from my perspective, as I say, I'm more editorial, so I wouldn't say like I specialised in one key area.
Yeah.
It's more just like editing and sub-editing the copy that comes in, and we would look after all kinds of content which comes in. It kind of works on two different strands. So we've got like the news outline, news aspect, with like the kind of live instant news which goes out straight away. Then you have that long reads, which are more considered. It takes a bit of time to work with them, etc., etc. Ranging from 900 words, say, to I read one which is 5,000 every day. Before we used to publish like 10,000 words a piece. We don't do that anymore. But so I'm more on that side of things.
Yeah.
And it just works really well in terms of, there's no real specialism. It's just more whatever comes in. We have to be on top of it.
Yeah. And so let's get into a little bit more about your job at the Athletic. So what does your day-to-day entail? And how did you get to the role that you are at now?
Yeah, so I think my role, I'm more of a sub-editor, so it's editing the copy that comes in. So it depends on the shifts that you're on, depending on what kind of copy comes in.
Okay.
Essentially the long reads are going to be the kind of bread and butter of what we do. So if you're working in the morning, you're kind of looking at, what's happening the night before and the content which comes in, maybe if there's a match the night before or whatever, and the content which has been provided by the reporter. So they'll file that copy overnight, then you pick it up in the morning, edit it, make sure you do the relevant quality control to get it up online. And then it's the same during the day. So before, we'd only publish stuff for the next morning, so you'd work on it for like the day before. But now, obviously, with our audience growing, readership growing, and a big focus on America, American company, cool. We might stagger the publication of stuff. So some stuff might go out midday or early evening to tie in with American audiences waking up on the East and West Coast, as well as the following morning. So discussions and planning is done to kind of see what content works best when, and it's just about making sure that the content is edited to the acceptable standard before publication.
Yeah, and did you come into the role as staff editor straight off the jump, or has there been any other roles that you've held at the
Yeah, no, I've mainly just done staff editing really. Yeah. We had a flirtation with there's a big project which we were gonna launch, but we didn't launch it, which I was a part of as well. So I can't really go into that too much because obviously it's not off the ground, sadly.
Fairs, yeah.
But that would have been amazing. But to be fair, what we were going to do in that project is kind of just implemented in the day to day now. So it was meant to be like a separate thing, but now it's just kind of day to day what we do. Yeah. So just growing in the role, and definitely from when I started to where I'm at now, I've definitely the editing and the quality of it is definitely naturally expected to improve in a year, let alone 4 years, to the point where you really try and set the standard and you want to bring people on that journey with you. Now I do a lot of that, but I also do a lot of my own stuff as well. So for example, last year I had my own column and I wrote on the EFL, which went out every Monday, and that was great because it's ownership of your own stuff, right? And it's every week, so you start building that audience in terms of people, fans of the EFL and stuff, and people coming to you for content, and to be fair, the fans really enjoyed it, because we don't do that much EFL stuff now, so that was great. And just from time to time I might write my own bits and bobs too, my own features, or you saw I do the newsletter sometimes, which we've recently launched too. So it can be a varied role, whatever you want to do. You just got to put the work in to do it, but there's no opportunities that will be blocked. There's always a chance for you to showcase a skill. They always give you an opportunity. For example, I was doing podcasts before for the company, and that was really good fun too. So there's such a broad scope of opportunity there. It was because we do podcasts, we do video, we do written, so it's all there for you. So yeah, it's this kind of all encompassing opportunities.
Yeah, and in the many roles that you've held, at the Telegraph, the Athletic, even work experience at the Daily Mail, has there ever been a time that you really faced a challenge, and how did you deal with said challenge and overcome it? It's a tough one. Yeah, that is putting you on the spot.
I can't really think of one like particular moment because but I think because it's just a constant evolution of stuff which goes on, and you just kind of think, okay, the next day there's more news, there's more content which you have to do. You almost kind of just go with it in that respect. You don't really take a step back to like reflect on what's actually happened, because yes, it is fast paced. Yes, things can be happening at 100 miles an hour, and things might go wrong. But then ultimately, the content is out there, and then you just move on to the next thing. So you don't always dwell too much on what you've done, because it's almost like there's a phrase in football. They say admiring your past. So if someone plays a long ball, you might be looking at it. Oh, that's a nice pass. And the coach will say, "Why are you admiring your pass? Like, get on the end, or make a run or whatever." And I think it's the same in journalism. Like, you could do an amazing story. You could have worked on it for weeks and weeks and weeks. It's published, and then it's on to the next one. I mean, obviously, you can have follow-ups and stuff like that, but you just got to keep evolving. You can't stand still, because how are you going to progress? And ultimately, content needs to be produced for the website and the newspaper if you have one. So it's difficult to kind of think of one particular scenario because of that. Yeah, it's just, if things do crop up, it's just learning about it, for the next time, whether, you've not got this particular bit of detail, or you might have missed typos or incorrect information which may not be fully fully sourced, or not even fully sourced, but just like, could you have dug deeper into it and explained it better? Is that kind of aspect where nothing's ever perfect, so you just have to kind of self-evaluate and think, okay, maybe I could have called this person, or I could have spent a bit more time explaining X or Y. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's that kind of aspect.
So in such a fast-paced moving industry like journalism, do you ever find yourself having to take like a second to gather yourself, or is it just one of those ones where you grow that thick skin and you just keep it moving and keep it stepping?
You're absolutely right. Obviously, you have to look after your mental well-being and take breaks where you can. Obviously, it's really important. I wouldn't advise anyone to just go all out, because you'll just burn out. But yeah, it's nice, if there's opportunity to take a step back and kind of just, not even admire what you've done, but just have a think about, what you've achieved and stuff like that. But as you say, it's always got to always keep it moving, because there's always challenges around the corner, always curveballs thrown at you, always X or Y that you've got to stay on top of, because people ultimately are relying on you to produce the news or provide the information. A lot of our club reporters, especially to the transfer window, their mentions are just filled with fans saying, what's happening with this player? What's happening with that player? What's going on? And it's your job to find that information and publish it. So you can't stand still. Even if you've broken an amazing transfer story about, player X going to club Y, okay, that's done. But now break another. That's just the mentality, isn't it? You just got to keep going.
Yeah. And talking about like the transfer news period of time, I'm assuming that's a very, very busy time as a sports journalist. How do you, obviously I'm not saying to reveal your sources, but how did you build those connections to get those sources in the first place?
Just through, you might meet people at games, you might just pick up the phone, a contact you may have. It all kind of builds onto one another. So you might meet someone who then knows someone else, who then knows someone else. A colleague might know someone. Then it's just up to you to pick up the phone. I'd always say pick up the phone. It's all running. You can send WhatsApps and emails, but picking up the phone, you can really get a real nuanced answer, as opposed to obviously people can send you stuff, obviously, and that's really helpful. But actually having a conversation, they might even add. You text someone, they might just give you point A, B, and C. But you might get let me say one A, if that makes sense. So you might get points 1, 2, and 3, but you pick up the phone, you'll get 1A, B, and C. You get 2 A, B, and C. The more detailed answer. So I'd always encourage people to just pick up the phone, because even if they don't answer, just keep plugging away, because you'll get a bigger picture and a better perspective on things through having a conversation rather than that text or email. So anyway, you go from there, you build a rapport with that person may introduce you to another person, and it just grows from there, really. Yeah. And then, as I say, it may not be an instant kind of impact in terms of providing a story straight away, but it maybe even be 6 months down the line, a year down the line, something happens, and I know so-and-so, let me give them a call, because we've got that good rapport, and then let's see what's going on, and then it just becomes that kind of cycle.
Yeah. Okay. And with that, so journalism does seem to be an all-consuming role looking from the outside in. Like we've talked about how fast-paced it is and how it can get a little bit busy. How do you go about like keeping your work-life balance to a healthy state if you do?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's really important. It comes from just managing your time well, if you're able to be as efficient as possible. But sometimes that's not always the case. I mean, I know the reporters, for example, I mean, we try and, like, if people are off, like, they're off, like, don't contact them. But I mean, might be sometimes where someone might have to work a long day just because they're digging into a story, and you might know that other people are digging into this particular story. So you've got to make the calls, you've got to make contacts with people and stuff like that as well. So it can be very challenging and time consuming, and especially as do a lot of stuff for the next day. The deadlines normally come around, let's say. I know for print, for example, that you have like your deadlines around 7:30, 8:00, 9, 10 o'clock. So if you're a parent of kids, sometimes it can be tricky in that respect, because that's the time where it's go time.
Yeah.
And that's where the bottleneck of content comes in, where you have to edit and whatever. So that balance can be tricky for a lot of people, and it's been tricky for me, I'll be honest. Like, you want to obviously make sure you're there for your family, and obviously that's important. So it's almost like when you're off, make sure that you're off. But then sometimes as a journalist, are you ever off? Because you don't want to be closed off so much that you come back and you come into it cold, because you have to get going again. So I think you're just trying to have a good system which works well for you. So when you're off, even if you're just kind of scrolling and staying on top of things, just in terms of not on top of work-wise, but just having that information, then absolutely fine. But having that time off if you're on holiday or whatever, to just completely just switch off and refocus. You can come back refreshed. Otherwise, burnout is inevitable, and it does happen. Yeah. So that kind of stuff, looking after yourself, trying to stay fit, stay healthy. Because again, it's very easy in offices. There's food, there's cake. I love sweet tooth. It's mad. So staying on top of your health, your fitness can only benefit you as well. So that's really important.
Yeah, that's actually quite an interesting one, and actually one that I need to even take on myself, because obviously I started this role around 6 months ago, and like I find myself with not as much time as I did back in uni, and I speak to my colleagues about that. So like and that big jump from being able to go on a run whenever I want, or go to the gym wherever I want, but then the next thing you know, you're working in 9 to 5.
Yes.
You're not able to do that. So do you still find yourself being able to go and see friends and and have a strong personal life that hasn't really been taken away from by work?
I think like, not even from work thing, but with children, obviously, it kind of takes on a different dimension, obviously.
Yeah.
But listen, you have to make sacrifices. Especially in football, a lot of games in the evening which you might be needed, or on weekends which you need to cover. So it might be someone's birthday. And of course, you want to try and be there, make time for that. That's really important, because to have that balance and go between. But there might be things which you may miss because you are traveling here, there, and everything. I mean, obviously, look, you have to prioritize what's priority. Like if it's like your mum's birthday, like, or your dad's birthday, whatever, you're going to try your best to make it, or like your child's birthday. Obviously, that's important. But again, you got to make that choice. What's your priority? What can you make work for you? What can't you? And you can't be at every single function. You can't be at every single event, can you? So. Yeah, listen, it's life, you have to make sacrifices, and I think journalists do make a lot of sacrifices in terms of that kind of work-life balance, but it just means that when you do have that time off, you enjoy it properly, and so you are refreshed to come back for it, definitely. But I don't want it to seem that it's just all encompassing, or you've got no social life or no outside, because that's just not healthy.
Yeah.
But there are aspects of the job which do require a lot of time and attention.
Yeah. And okay, so throughout your entire career, it does seem like you gravitate towards stories about diversity, and in newsrooms don't tend to have like the connotation of being the most diverse sort of places. So how have you seen it? Have you witnessed it in your career, or is it different to what people think?
That's a good question. I think I've just fallen into that. It's not a thing of like, how do I say it? It's not a thing where like it's just happened. Like, I'm lucky that if something has happened, I've been given a space to write about it. But at the same time, like, I don't just want to, like, you talk about personal brand earlier, to be, oh, so-and-so is just talking about this or talking about that. But at the end of the day, it's a very important topic. And, it's something that, things like diversity and stuff like that needs to be shed a light on also. So there's opportunity to talk about it. Of course, there's going to be a conversation. But, I think it's important that everybody has a role to play in this. So by that I mean, normally what tends to happen when there's an incident of like racism or something, it's just, oh, you got a black person, you can write about it. Let's say it's racism towards black people. But I don't think that should be always the case, because everybody's got a role to play in kind of diminishing it and getting rid of racism in football society. So, white people have just as much responsibility to write about it as well. So people might turn around and say, oh, but you've not experienced it, why are you writing about it? But if you know that it's wrong, and you can write and you can explain your arguments coherently and concisely, then of course you're going to write about it. You should write about it, because, as you say, I think a lot of the time when these things happen, it's almost like, okay, you're black, you've got to solve it. And actually, we don't always have the answers. Or we might have the ideas to do it, but actually it's the whole of society which has to come together to provide that kind of perspective on it. So, and I'm very lucky where I work, a lot of people dive into these issues, not just black people, but say white people, Asian people, whatever. And that's really important, that it's not just, oh, you got a black guy there, let him write about it. Am I making sense?
Yeah,
So we've all got a role to play in that. And as I said, people might say, oh, but how can you talk about it if you've not experienced it? But sometimes it's not even just about experiencing it, but it's about, have you got a solution, or can you write impactfully to try and change someone's opinion? And, we've all got a role to play in that. If we've got the platform to try and make a difference, why don't we do that?
Yeah.
And everyone's got a role to play in that.
Yeah. And I think a great example of your, pieces of work that have, show the commitment to, diversity would be your work on the Jack Leslie book. Yeah. Tell me about The Lion Who Never Roared.
Oh,
yeah.
amazing.
Obviously, we can't go into too much detail about it because we want people to actually read the book in the first place.
It's a great story.
Tell me about it.
So, there's a couple of Plymouth fans who set up a kind of, not a charity, but like an awareness thing to celebrate his life, because, he was one of the best. So basically, cut a long story short, Jack Leslie played for Plymouth in the 1920s and 30s. And he was doing really well, where he won he was called up to play for England, but then he was deselected based on the colour of his skin. So if he'd played, he would have been the first black player to play for England, but was deselected. So the whole kind of campaign and story is about kind of obviously shedding light on him and telling his story. So the author and the kind of head of the kind of campaign, Matt Tiller, he got in touch and said, look, I'm writing this book. I really enjoy your writing. Because, so basically, in 2022, his statue was erected at Home Park, home of Plymouth Argyle. And I went to it and I wrote a piece on the back of it. And Matt read it and said, look, I really like your writing. I'd love for you to get involved in the book, whether it's a kind of my consultancy, in order to, just want to make sure I got to get in the tone right and stuff like that. So I just got involved in it, helped kind of put it together, provided that kind of consultancy on it, and I wrote a little bit in it as well. And it was a super fun project to be involved in, because, it's really sad that you got this talented player who, you think playing for England is based on the meritocracy. He was like the leading goal scorer in the country at the time. Some of his teammates have been recognised by their countries, Scotland, etc. Why isn't he?
Yeah.
And it just goes into like his life and times really. He grew up in the East End of London, got this move to Plymouth, as I say, prolific striker. But for some reason, we know the reason, obviously racism, his England cap was taken away from him by the suits upstairs, and denied him the opportunity. And I think the reason why it struck a nerve with me and had an impact was, in school, when we learn about kind of Black History Month as we're speaking now, you're kind of taught a lot about like American history, slavery, that kind of thing, and really important UK historical figures aren't really spoken about, or we don't know about. And even when I was doing this thing on Jack Leslie, like not many people knew about him, apart from obviously they know about him in Plymouth because they're really proud of what they've done on there. And it's you know, his is a really really important story in history. You know, that's should be one of the ones which are taught in schools to the next generation. Of course, it's important to know about American history and all the like other stuff and negative stuff, but we've got powerful stories in our shores which we need to tell as well. And I think that's why I really wanted to get involved in the book, to really tell that story and say, look, you know, it's important that we learn about what happened in our country. Don't get me wrong, the American stuff's really important and it's good to learn about, but we live in England, we should know about our history in our country and the prominent black figures who, say in Jack Leslie's case, were airbrushed from history. Yeah. And it wasn't until 50 years later that we saw the first black players play for England seniors. So it's crazy, from 1920, in the late 1920s, when it was Tonight's Cat, to 1977, I think it was, when Viv Anderson played for England. All that time. There's not been a black player play for England. It's crazy.
50, 60
It's
years.
absolutely insane.
Ridiculous.
So that's the kind of history that we should be learning about as well. It shouldn't always be negative. Don't get me wrong, there are a lot of amazing pioneers who've done great work, but we should know about our history in our country, and I think that will help inspire the next generation as well.
Okay, all right. So we've spoken about your journalism career, and I just want a little segue there. That was fantastic. That was a great story there. And I feel like it will do a lot for, you know, for people that see these types of stories and then they feel like their community is being properly represented,
yes, absolutely,
and reported on that, because that's why we all do this at the end of the day.
Exactly.
And okay, so we've spoken about the heights and not the lows, but the challenges you faced in your career. Now it's time to get into. Usually I say it's time to get into the fun bit. It's time to get into the questions that matter, which is true. But after that last section, I don't even feel, that is not the case. But we're going to get into what makes you. What makes Richard Amofa Richard Amofa.
Cool.
So the first question is quite a big one. It's quite a big one. And the listeners will be interested to hear, are you an extrovert or are you an introvert?
I think I know it's a kind of cop-out answer, but it's based on the environment that I'm in.
Yeah.
So you know, sometimes I can be, you know, loud. I'm not naturally the loudest person in the room, but I can be. But I wouldn't say I'm an introvert either. So I would say that I'm in the middle, maybe closer to the. I wouldn't say even close to the extrovert side. I think it's just in the middle. It depends on the environment that I'm in, kind of adapts into that.
Yeah. Way. Okay. Because I think people usually think that if you're going to be a journalist and you're going to be able to speak to people, you have to be extroverted. But I like to think there's always going to be a role for you in journalism.
Of course, yeah. And a lot of journalists I come across who aren't extrovert at all, but you know how to get the job done. Like I'd just say I'm not particularly extroverted. I would say. Excuse me, and I know some colleagues and previous places where I've worked where people haven't been extroverts either, but you know how to sniff out a story, you know how to communicate well, which is really important. And also, like, you know, even with some editors where you're not always hitting the phones and stuff like that, maybe you might be more introverted, but you can communicate well and you can do your job well. So every personality type has its role within journalism based on the role that you're doing.
Yeah, okay. Do you have any nicknames?
Well, the nickname for Richard is well evident, but luckily people don't really call me that, thankfully. Yeah, just Rich, really. Like, I don't really have that many. Maybe when I was younger, but not now.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Roddy Rich.
There we go.
Yeah.
Thank you. There we go.
And then, are you a night owl or an early riser?
I'm now more of a night owl. Before, I was always up early, like 5 a.m, 6 a.m. every day, routine, wake up early, gym, when there's lectures or work, and I preferred being up early, but now I'm up early by force because I've got kids, so I have to be up early anyway. And then, kind of at night, probably do my best work because that's when everyone's gone to sleep or everyone's away, not many people are awake, so I can really focus on what I'm doing. So I'll probably say I'm more of a night owl now, to be fair. Night owl, definitely.
Yeah. And how many kids do you have?
Got 2.
Ah, okay. Oh, very nice, very nice.
Thank you.
And okay, so Who would be your dream interview if you haven't interviewed them already?
Oh, wow.
And I'm going to put pressure and say the first person that comes to mind that just flashes up.
Just flashes into my head. I would say, just for haste and time,
Of course.
and this is for no reason at all, just because it's just in my head at the moment, but David Beckham. And the reason why is because, one, he doesn't do that many interviews. I know he did one recently, reified, and that was quite good, but I think with Beckham, he's such an interesting character because she's had this like amazing career and is so high profile. But then, and now, he just, obviously he's very successful in what he does, but he doesn't really, you don't see him talk as much or give as much like opinion and stuff. And I think he's just such an interesting character.
Yeah.
Just to get his thoughts and feelings on certain stuff, how he rose to, became the footballer to businessman, icon, etc. So yeah, I think that's just the one that came to my mind because I saw him on telly the other day.
Yeah.
Listen, there's many others,
Yeah,
obviously, I
course,
just
yeah.
can't think of the top of my head. But yeah, I'd say David just because he's such like a successful character. Just want to know just more about him as a person.
Of course. I think that Beckham documentary as well. That
was so good, wasn't
that
it?
was
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, it was so good.
I was about to say that was effing amazing.
Yeah.
Excuse my French. But yeah, so good, so good. And okay, so let's say after your time here with News Associates, you're about to leave. You're leaving here. You're going to interview David Beckham.
Yeah.
What are you putting in? What song are you putting on to hype you up? To
hype
get
me
you
up.
to get you in that mindset.
Well, kind of going on like kind of stuff. So this year, I've really enjoyed the new Gats album, and the new Bashi. Not new, but it's like this year Bashi album as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, because Bashi as well is quite in a similar area to me. So it's nice. Sometimes like you don't really hear about those areas. So when it's like comes up in his music, it's like okay, that's cool. And then maybe a bit of Ghana as well. So yeah, just like those three, just so that get me like focused and ready for it, I'd say. So yeah.
Okay. And then let's say, you listen to a bit of Bashi, a bit of Gets, and you've got to the interview and you've absolutely smashed it. After the interview's done, Beckham's like, you know what, Rich, I'm kind of hungry. I need something to eat.
Yeah.
What are you cooking up for him right there?
Oh,
And you have all the ingredients in the world, so you can work out
I'm
anything.
cooking a nice medium rare steak.
Yeah.
Peppercorn sauce, asparagus.
Yeah.
I know you're not meant to have, kind of rice or steak, but I like jollof rice. I like having that with a lot of stuff.
Yeah, of course.
So put that on the side as well. Some plantain as well. As I say, it's not like the textbook dish, but I like mixing and fusing. And also as well that, from the people, I want to bring them into my culture as well. So that's what I would have definitely.
And what type of jollof? So by asking what type of jollof, I'm asking what country are you originally from?
From Ghana. So
Ghana,
Ghanaian
okay.
jollof.
Ghanaian jollof.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay,
So
okay.
what about you?
Me, I'm Congolese.
Okay.
So I like jollof, but we don't really.
You don't have that,
it.
do you? Yeah, of course. Yeah.
For the most part, I'm easy.
Yeah.
I'm not swearing any allegiance to any type.
Probably safe, yeah.
But maybe right now, because you're here, I'll say Ghanaian jollof.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, listen, you made the right choice.
Of course.
So yeah, people look at me and say that's a crazy meal, and it is. But I just, I like to mix and match and try to make things work. And luck of the draw, one day, hopefully for Beckham, it comes out well.
100%. I reckon he'll probably enjoy it.
Yeah, I think so. He likes his food.
And I think that's the most British thing ever. Like, because obviously the UK, especially London, it's a melting pot of all the different cultures.
Exactly.
So that meal is just like that.
Yeah,
so.
that is it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that sounds a bit weird, but yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, forgive me.
No, no problem.
It tastes nice to me.
Yeah,
so
no,
there we go.
I hear it. And then, following up, back to the music vibe again. What is the best concert you've ever been to?
I went to see The Weekend at O2.
Oh, okay.
That was a while back now. That was really good. All the festivals going on.
Oh,
when Wireless used to be good.
Yeah.
I went to a few and they were good. The one I actually went to 2018, and Drake came out. So he wasn't meant to be there. It was meant to be DJ Khaled, and he cancelled on the day. And there's a big chance that he's not coming. So Giggs was headlining, and obviously Giggs was doing his thing. And at the time, obviously Giggs had that song with Drake.
Yeah.
So obviously the intro came out, and everyone just started going absolutely crazy. And then obviously Drake came out, and it was just insane. And Drake did a little set, and yeah, that was just incredible. So him, see like J Cole. I've seen J Cole a couple of times. It's been great. So yeah, I say those kind of experiences have been really good. They're obviously my favorite artists as well. So,
Of course.
so.
The fact that you got to see the moment that Giggs brought out Drake, I'm jealous.
It was
Honestly,
crazy.
like at that time, if I'm being completely honest with you, I was like, 2018, like I was like 16.
Yeah.
And my parents,
You'd be allowed to go.
They were like, you want to
Exactly.
go wireless? What do you think? You're playing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was a long time ago to be fair. But,
Yeah.
I'm more of a festivals guy now, really. But if I can get to like some concerts now, then good. But yes, festivals are where it's at now. So.
And okay, a couple more. Okay, so what are you currently watching TV show wise?
I just finished Industry
Okay.
on BBC iPlayer.
Yeah.
And have you watched it before?
No, I've not seen it.
So basically, it's about investment bankers, and it follows like the journeys of like some graduates in this investment bank, and it just goes into their life. Just all the stuff they get up to is really, can be quite seedy, and all the kind of acts, some bits of debauchery, but just the stuff which they kind of come across is really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Great plot twists. So I've just finished that, so that's really good. So yeah, I'd recommend it definitely.
Okay. I might have to watch that on my journey back
Yeah,
home.
I recommend it. You got to tell me what you think.
Yeah. And final few, favorite movie? If you can. Like when people ask the question, favorite movie, there's probably like 10 coming out.
Yeah,
but if you could answer, favorite movie?
Wolf of Wall Street.
Oh,
I'll say.
that is an absolutely
Love that.
valid option.
Yeah.
And then, what are you currently reading?
I am reading. What am I reading? Last book I read, which is not good, probably about a month ago, and it was the Zlatan Ibrahimovic not documentary, Zlatan's autobiography. Really good, really good.
That sounds like autobiography. And one final question. One word to describe your career as of right now.
Interesting. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Richard Amofa, for coming on to the podcast. I feel like I could have spoke to you for about 2 hours.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
That was a lot of fun. And yeah, I think the guests probably got so many different tidbits and nuggets of information that hopefully that takes them onto their careers and progresses them forward. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in to How to Be a Journalist. I've been Plamdi Mabungu, and I'll see you next time out.